Alberta power prices have gone up exponentially in the last little while. We're hearing estimates of 200 to 300% in the last couple of years. And I've talked to economist Dave Gray about this before. His analysis is that it's economic withholding by the utilities that dominate the Alberta power market. Well, he is in a position to know. He was one of the economists who helped design the deregulated system in Alberta during the 1990s. He was the utility consumer advocate for a time. And we're going to talk to him today about a story he posted from 2017 about how another example of economic withholding in Alberta boosted power prices. So welcome to the interview, Dave.
Thanks, Markham. Good to see you again.
Likewise. This is one of the reasons why this story is interesting, Dave, and we'll get into the details of this part of it in a short while, is how both the government, the regulator, the utility, nobody wants to actually talk about what is driving up prices. The Premier Danielle Smith blames it on renewables. She blames it on the federal government. And nobody wants to actually talk about the mechanism. And meanwhile, Albertans are hurting because their power prices have gone up so much.
Yeah, it's very definitely economic withholding. It's so the clearest and easiest way to see it is in a paper that was done by Blake Schaefer and the U of C Public Policy School in 2022, when they divided up all of the things that were affecting the price. And the predominant one was economic withholding, or as they denoted it, increased markup. It's really the ability of these companies to price gouge, which is, you want something, you really need it. Okay, well, the price just went up. It's a demand inelastic commodity. And the pricing mechanism in our market is that they can legally do that. They can legally price gouge. It's not a good way to do it. And so I'll let you, come back and ask the follow up to that, because I'm not sure
let's talk about that, because in 2010 and 2011, TransAlta, the utility, violated these market rules with economic withholding 6 times. And it was fined. There's a market surveillance administrator that monitors these things. The company was fined $52 million, plus it had to give back all of the ill-gotten profit that it had earned. But what's really interesting is in 2017, when all of this was coming out and the rulings were taking place, is the administrator says, we're not going to issue guidelines on economic withholding anymore. Basically, I read that and I went, well, what do they do? Just throw it wide open for everybody to do it anyway? Is that the correct?
No, the opposite of that. It's the opposite of that. Economic withholding came in 2012. And the reason it did was because this market sucks. When there's an oversupply of generation, game theory takes the price to the marginal cost of the marginal supplier, and nobody makes any money. So there are periods of time in the history of the market when they've really, been sucking fumes. And their solution was to allow this economic withholding form of price gouging using market power. When you've got an entity with enough market power to be able to withhold some or price it above where it would otherwise be in order to drag the price up for the entire market. And that's what's also unique about our market, is that everybody gets paid the highest price. It was TransCanada in 2013, 2014 that were the first ones to use economic withholding. And at that time, I was able to get the attention of the press, in part because I built an app to warn the commercial customers that I had of when prices were high, because it's not a subtle effect. When you would expect prices to be 8 cents or 9 cents, all of a sudden they're 90 or a buck, right? And it adds up really fast. We buy kilowatt hours by the millions, right? So, it was put in place in 2012 that thing you noticed in 2017 was actually the market surveillance administrator saying, no, you can't use it. And it was in 2022, June 20th, I think 2022 or 2020, when the market surveillance administrator re-upped their notification to allow it again. They re-upped the market recommendations. So it was off when the NDP were in, and is back on when the UCP were in. And not only was it back on, but it was back on with sort of pent up market power when TransAlta got all its plants back. It started up again with a fury midnight, January 1, 2021.
So do I understand this correctly, Dave, that the MSA, the Market Surveillance Administrator, allowed economic withholding because it was balancing the low profits or the losses for some of the time during some of the operation of the market by making excess profits at other times?
It is the only price elevating mechanism we have in our market because our market is that stupid. It's the only forward pricing mechanism in that market, and it doesn't work for beans. So it has an inherent problem that people don't want to enter a cornered market. So we're never going to get proper competition. It's just dumb. And when they talked them into it, I'm sure it was on that basis that, we need to make a profit. Well, they didn't say what they really should have said was, we'd really like to get a hold of every customer in Alberta's bank account and just drain it. Like it's
okay,
just serious.
Okay, so I think we're, if I understand this, the regulator is allowing them to make excess profits because it's understood that sometimes the industry loses money, and this will all balance out in the wash. But then we've had 2 years of these high prices and 3 years of these high prices, and it doesn't look like there's any relief in sight.
No, in fact, TransAlta has made a move to purchase the assets of Heartland Generation, which will maintain it in the range needed in the Schemer index. There's an index about competition. The long and short of it is they'll be able to stay in this economic withholding catbird seat indefinitely.
So basically, they have more generating assets, which gives them more power in the market, more flexibility to bring those units on and off at the right time to boost up the price.
It's even worse than that because they're adding what are essentially fast twitch gas plants from Heartland. They can play all sorts of games. It is just the worst possible, least efficient way you could try and design a forward pricing mechanism for a commodities market.
Why is forward pricing important?
Forward pricing is how you, in a properly functioning commodities market, look at future events and let the market accommodate and correct for them. So in a properly functioning market, what would happen is there would now start to be a split between the offers and tenders in the future that will have to be brought together by someone building a new plant and people offering more money to buy that in the future. So that's how that happens in good markets, is that the supply and demand imbalance gets balanced in the future. And then the closer you get to it, the more it converges to the spot market. We just don't have that. We don't have a market that functions that way. It's set up in favor of the incumbents for them to continue to make extraordinary rent in the economic term, continue to price gouge in the vernacular.
So is the way to fix this problem for the regulator or the policymakers, the government, to implement at least one different forward market so that the market can essentially balance itself properly?
The prescription that Sheldon Fulton and I put forward is to make it just like the natural gas market, with 3 key attributes. That is firm, the generators provide reliability and guarantee it. It's physical, which means that it has to get delivered to the market, and the buyer takes resale power over it. And it's forward. So these things are all happening in a forward market. It's essentially like gas, where you'd need a forward contract in order to get on the system.
And in your opinion, the gas markets have functioned very well in Alberta.
It does what it's supposed to do. It doesn't spend, 3 years mysteriously 500% above the price it should be.
So how does this structural issue within the Alberta electricity markets get resolved? I mean, can people put pressure on the regulator? Should they be calling their MLA? I mean, what are consumers supposed to do?
Remedy is legislative, because the problem is the structure of the market as embedded in the legislation and regulations. It's like trying to build a house on a crooked foundation, right? Everything is based off the integrity of that market, and that market has no integrity.
Okay, so the Alberta government passed legislation enabling the market. It then provides regulations which now accommodate economic withholding. And then the regulator and the market surveillance administrator have to oversee this, but they can't make the structural change. That has to come from the Alberta government.
Correct.
Okay. Well, then I guess, viewers, if you're living in Alberta, get on your phone and your emails and contact your MLA, because without without new legislation passed, this problem isn't going to be fixed, and you are going to be paying enormous. Dave, before we go, what are many consumers paying now for electricity in Alberta?
I still see a lot of bills that people are sending me in the 30+ cent range just for energy. We have another problem, which is our extraordinarily high distribution and transmission costs arising from a decade's worth of bad decisions that also affect everyone. It's really unlivable for a lot of people. And for a lot of small businesses, they're just taking it in the shorts. And there's $30 billion a year in extra profit, like above what's needed for regular return, going to the shareholders of these companies every single year. And it's now in the 36th month of this. And unless they face reality that it's a problem with the structure and the operation of the market, it's never going to stop. And if it does stop, it will be for political reasons and at the control of one of these companies.
Well, Dave, thank you very much for this. Really appreciate your insights.
Thanks, Markham.